Now we'll be moving on to the next portion of our meetings. Usually we have a few of our Toast members give speeches, and then those speeches will be evaluated to sort of help people work through different ways that they can improve on their public speaking skills. So our first speaker that we have today is one of our members, Randy Leos, who's one of our newer members also. Randy has been helping to bridge political divides for several years and has worked with organizations from a variety of sectors to address internal cultural challenges, including nonprofits, religious organizations, and educational institutions, as well as business clients. After a 15-year career in the automotive industry, he joined the nonprofit Braver Angels, one of the leading national groups focused on reducing political polarization, and now runs DOC, Depolarizing Organizational Cultures, focusing on helping organizations of all types develop healthy cultures that foster a sense of belonging for all of their members and employees. Here to speak to us today about polarization, Randy Leos. You have the floor.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Toast Leader, and I appreciate the chance to talk to all of you about political polarization and how it's affecting the business community. I did want to ask, are people able to see my slides?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. So I want to start out with a story. I was talking to a business owner recently who told me about an experience he had during COVID. He was trying to manage his company's response when the vaccines were introduced. And while he didn't require his employees to get vaccinated, he did encourage it. His business is in conservative Idaho, and this upset some of his workers so much that a bunch of them quit. So I've talked to so many people who are frustrated with the impact of this type of polarization, where people across the political divide not only disagree, but treat each other with distrust, contempt, and even dehumanization. And it's not just affecting us personally, but impacting our work together in all types of organizations, including businesses. With the huge influence of organizations on our larger culture, it's not just their missions and effectiveness at stake, but also the health of our institutions and even our country. So it isn't just our duty as colleagues, to our colleagues, our investors, and our customers to respond, but also part of our civic duty as Americans. A few years ago, Greater Good magazine took a look at what polarization has been costing us. It's definitely been impacting us personally. Thanksgiving dinners were actually a lot shorter in places where families were politically mixed. In 2016 alone, we lost almost 4,000 years worth of time together because of polarization. We're also sorting geographically, moving to areas where people agree with us. And why are we doing this? Well, often it's to avoid having tough conversations. That geographical sorting is now overlapping with other trends that are affecting us at work. Research has shown that each generation in this country is starting out more polarized and then getting even more so over their lifetimes. And technology is a big part of this trend. Rather than connecting us, social media amplifies our worst impulses, isolating us and keeping us immersed while our real-life relationships wither. And young people entering the workforce are now facing the extra isolation of remote work, which has exploded since the start of the pandemic. They're missing out on a lot of the basic interactions we all need when we start to build trusting relationships. And with young folks more likely to say they want their personal values reflected in their work and to be more vocal about it, especially on social media, we're seeing conflicts over core beliefs wrecking work relationships before people can even start building trust, which is making it harder for orgs to achieve their goals. All right, let's get down to business specifically. Last year, the Business Bridging Divides report stated that almost 70% of the companies they surveyed had negative effects from political and social divides on their employees and culture. And nearly half said that their leaders were finding it tough to manage the conflict, especially without making things worse. And the National Bureau of Economic Research found that executive teams have been sorting themselves since 2008, both due to execs hiring more like-minded colleagues and the fact that leaders who don't align with their firm's political culture are leaving. And when these execs leave, it's having a much bigger impact on companies' bottom lines than other execs leaving, to the tune of $200 million in extra losses for shareholders for the average company in the study. So what's really going on here? Why is polarization so bad for business? Well, this data backs up the idea that companies that don't value diversity of perspective shoot themselves in the foot by pushing away some of the best leaders and losing employees' trust. When that happens, fear rushes in to fill the gap. Workers at all levels become less willing to go out on a limb with their own ideas, and they stop challenging ideas that they see as part of the mainstream orthodoxy at their company. And it's shutting down all kinds of conversations. It leads to organizational monocultures. And that has a huge implication for innovation and flexibility. And it affects everyone from top to bottom, especially new and prospective hires. I want to highlight this quote from the Business Bridging Divides report. Attracting top talent, a tough task to begin with, is all the more difficult to navigate when partisan tribalism leaves half the talent pool off the table. So polarization has been taking a huge toll on us personally, and now, because of a bunch of other factors coming together, like the way we're sorting ourselves geographically and the impacts of technology, especially on the latest generation of workers, it's seeping into our work lives too. And that's starting to have a big impact on our ability to accomplish things together, even at profit-driven companies. All right, so all that is the bad news. But I want to wrap up with some good news. Companies and other organizations can be part of the solution. Most of us still have friends with more diverse beliefs at work than outside work. Our workplaces can still offer us a shared space to meet people that have very different backgrounds and perspectives from us, as long as we want them to. They also offer shared goals, which reinforce how much of our values we share. And that's crucial for building trusting relationships. We're also creating and practicing norms at work for how we treat each other in general. So our workplace cultures tend to have a pretty big impact on the larger culture of our society. So, what I'd really like you to take away from today is the motivation to build depolarizing organizational cultures. Sure, depolarizing can be an action, but it also describes the type of culture that we need to build that creates a sense of belonging for everyone, encourages the free exchange of ideas and creative solutions, and has a positive impact on everyone inside them and around them. And it can start with something as simple as putting in place a norm for online meetings where people share something personal from their lives. But there's so much more that we can do that can benefit us, our companies, and our country. So let's discuss those ideas for your culture. Sign up for a DOC demo session where you can experience the types of programs that help you build a depolarizing culture. If we can succeed in doing this across the country, it won't just make our organizations more effective and our businesses more profitable and sustainable, but it can help ensure that our democratic republic will be around for another 250 years. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Randy, for that very, very interesting speech, especially speaking as a Senate staffer. I'm sure depolarization is something that we can definitely learn a lot from. Now, after our speakers give their speech, we move into the speech evaluation portion of the meeting. This is an area where people get to improve their public speaking skills and focuses on things such as speech length, word choice, style, enunciation, all of those sorts of things. But it's always done in a way that really makes sure that we are nurturing a speaker's inherent talent and helping them to grow rather than tearing down for the sake of tearing down. And one of the best speech evaluators that I know, Carol, is up next to give her evaluation of Randy's speech. Carol, you have the floor.
Thank you, Toast Leader Gabriel, and all these wonderful, beautiful guests. So thrilled you're here online and in person. And Randy, I love your speeches. And I love that what you've changed with this speech since you last gave it. So you started with the story right out of the bat. That is a great way to start a speech, the introduction with a story. And the story was very easy to understand. It was quick. It was memorable. And then the body of your speech, you had your wonderful PowerPoint that was very clear. I didn't find it too wordy. And you continued to speak slowly. I think last time when you gave the speech, it was very rapid fire and you really slowed down. And I think you pulled out some just repetitive things. So I thought it was a lot more easy to follow. but you kept in a lot of the examples that we could relate to about where people move or Thanksgiving holidays. So those were all really, really strong. The challenge I would add, because you're already a very strong speaker, your messages, your voice, the way you structure your speech, all is really good. The thing, and I know you plan to give it in person today and you ended up having to give it online, is start a little bit more with some gestures and some more facial expressions, right? Your face can make 260 facial expressions. So use some of them. Smile. When you're talking about the stressful situation, you could kind of reflect that. And then because you're online, a lot of your gestures were down here. So we just sort of saw these weird fingers moving down here. So when you're going to be giving your speech and you want to add in gestures, if you're online, they have to be kind of small, but you don't want dinosaur arms, right? You don't want your speech here because that just looks weird. But when you're in a person here, you're going to have very big gestures. And so think about how to put in gestures. And to do that, I would have you think about the three parts of a gesture. One is when it leaves your body, the gesture itself, and then returning it to your body, right? So if you're going to do a point, you're not going to do some weird pointy thing here, right? Because that looks weird. So that's sort of just think about especially a speech of coming together or building community, there's so many visuals to sort of bring that message home. So as you've pretty much mastered the content and the vocal delivery, I would urge you to think about, the visuals of how you're telling the story. And that's where your body and your gestures, I think, can really grow. But this speech has so many offshoots of all the things that we need to talk about as a country and we do here in a club. So my biggest message to you is keep going, keep giving us the gifts of your insights and your wisdom, and I hope your car gets fixed. Mr. Toast Leader.